Jason stood stopped outside Jake's room. His fists clenched so tight that his knuckles turned white. Jason remembered Jake's tear-stained face and the way his small body trembled as he described the instant Drew's hand struck him. Jason was tortured by more than simply physical agony. Treachery was also a factor. Drew, his twin brother in all but blood, had crossed a boundary that could never be reversed. The slap was terrible enough, but snatching Britt and dragging her away into the night with threats no one dared to repeat had shattered any remaining trust between them. Jason's world, already shattered by years of grief and violence, was collapsing beneath him. He placed his forehead against the cool glass of the hospital window, peering at Jake's sleeping body. The boy appeared little and vulnerable, hooked up to monitors that beeped quietly in the dim room. Jake's mother, Elizabeth, sat alongside him, lovingly caressing his hand. Her eyes met Jason's through the glass, and her grief mirrored his own. She didn't need to say anything. They both understood it wasn't just a bruise or an outburst of fury. This was about a broken family, about a man they both loved who had succumbed to something terrible and unrecognizable. Jason looked aside, unable to face Elizabeth's sight. He needed to move, act, and do something, anything, to bring Britt back and hold Drew accountable. However, his feet felt heavy, as if the hospital floor was pulling him down, anchoring him in this moment of helplessness. He hadn't felt this powerless since the night he lost Sam, or since waking up in a clinic with no knowledge of who he was. Those events had almost broken him, but this was even worse. This was his son, his heart, and the lady who had inspired him to believe in a future beyond the darkness. Britt's phone had sent out a garbled voicemail an hour ago. Her voice, which was normally steady and sharp, was filled with anxiety. Jason is not himself. Drew has located me at the old warehouse on Pier 17. Please hurry. The voice ended abruptly, leaving Jason with nothing but static and a sickening feeling in his stomach. He'd rushed to the hospital first to visit Jake and ensure his boy's safety before going after Britt. But standing here now watching Jake sleep, Jason was torn between two unthinkable choices: stay with his kid or save the woman he loved. Sonny Corinthos appeared at his side, his expression filled with worry. Jason, we have men scouring the pier. Spinelli is hacking into every camera in the region. We'll locate her. Sonny's voice was calm, but Jason knew him well enough to detect an undercurrent of worry. Sonny had witnessed Drew's unraveling. The steady spiral that began after the truth about their common past was revealed. Drew had always been the nice guy, the moral compass, but something had cracked. Perhaps it was the weight of their father's history, the continual comparison to Jason, or something deeper, which none of them could identify. Whatever it was, it had transformed Drew into a stranger. I should have seen it, Jason muttered, his voice low and gruff like gravel underfoot. I should have known he was breaking. Sonny shook his head. No one saw this coming. Not like this. But Jason couldn't take it. He was supposed to defend those he cared about. That was his job and mission. He had failed Jake. He had failed Britt. And now, every second he remained here meant Britt was in risk. He pushed off the wall, his decision complete. Sonny grabbed his arm and said, I'm going to the pier. You cannot go alone. He isn't steady, Jason. You've heard what he did to Jake. What he can do now. Jason pushed off Sonny's hands, his blue eyes steely as steel. He has Britt. I don't have a choice. The journey to Pier 17 was a blur, with city lights racing past like tears in the rainy night. Jason's mind raced, revisiting every moment he'd spent with Britt. Her sharp wit, her daring heart, the way she looked at him as if he were more than a weapon, a soldier in someone else's war. She'd seen the man beneath the scars, the one who wished to believe in something better, even if he didn't deserve it. And now she was suffering the price for his mistakes, trapped in the crossfire of a life he had chosen years ago. The warehouse loomed ahead, like a rusting skeleton against the stormy sky. Jason stopped his bike a block away and moved quietly through the shadows, his rifle a familiar weight in his grip. The air was thick with the odor of salt and decay, and the pier creaked with the weight of the wind. He stepped inside, his senses acute, every creak and leak accentuated by the huge abyss. The warehouse was black save for a single flickering light in the far corner. Britt was there amid the awful brightness. She was tethered to a chair, her face pallid but defiant, her gaze fixed on Drew, who paced in front of her like a captive animal. His clothing were soiled, his hair untamed, and his eyes, those eyes that had previously resembled Jason's, burned with a frantic intensity. He held a knife in his hand, the blade catching the light as he waved furiously. "You don't understand, do you?" Drew spoke in a desperate tone. "Neither of you ever received it. I was supposed to be the one who set things right. I was supposed to be better than him," Britt said, her voice firm as she pushed against the ropes. "Drew, you don't need to do this. Whatever is going on, we can resolve it. Just let me go." Jason approached, his heart pounding. He couldn't shoot yet, especially with Britt so near to Drew. One false move and she'd be the one to pay. He needed to get her out and put a stop to this without spilling any more blood. But Drew's words silenced him completely. "You think Jason is a hero?" Drew spat and turned to face Britt. "He is a killer. A machine. And you selected him. You all chose him." Britt's eyes flashed, and Jason thought she saw him in the darkness. Her tone softened, but there was hardness underlying it. "I did not choose him because he is a hero, Drew. I choose him because he is trying. He's trying to be better for Jake and for himself." Drew laughed in a hollow, cracked tone. "It is too late for that. It was too late for me." Jason pushed forward, his voice cutting through the darkness. "Let her go, Drew." Drew turned around, the knife flashing in his palm. His eyes expanded, then narrowed, revealing a twisted smile on his lips. "There he is. Jason Morgan is an outstanding individual. Come to save the day again." Jason held his rifle steady, his stare fixed on Drew. "This is not you. Whatever's going on, we'll work it out. But you have to let Britt go." Drew's smile faded into something deeper, more primal. "You do not get to tell me who I am. You took everything from me. My life, my family, and my son. And you desire her too." Jason's heart twisted at the mention of Jake. Drew's eyes were filled with sadness as a result of years spent under Jason's shadow. But he could not let his pain excuse this. "Jake loves you," Jason stated quietly but firmly. "He's hurt right now, Drew. Thanks to you. Don't make things worse." Drew hesitated for a moment, the knife quivering in his grasp. Britt took the opportunity, her voice gentle yet urgent. Drew listened to him. "Jake needs you. He needs his father." But the moment faded and Drew's expression hardened. "No. Jake is better off without me. And you?" He turned to Britt and raised the knife. Jason didn't think. "You're just collateral." He moved, tackling Drew to the ground while the gun skidded across the floor. The knife cut at his arm, causing him agony, but he refused to stop. He pushed Drew down, his hands holding his brother's wrists and pushing the knife away. Britt's voice sounded shrill and desperate. "Stop, Jason. You will murder him." But Jason couldn't hear her for the roar of his own blood in his ears. He only saw Jake's injured face, Britt's dread, and the betrayal of a guy he had once trusted with his life. His fist repeatedly struck Drew's jaw, causing Drew to go limp beneath him. Britt's hands were on him, tugging him back. "Jason, enough. He's down. He's done." Jason lurched back, his chest heaving and blood streaming from his arm on the cold concrete. Britt was free. She had managed to loosen the ropes during the fight. Her doctor instincts took precedence over her fear as she knelt alongside Drew, checking his pulse. "He's alive," she announced, her voice cracking. "But he needs help." Jason nodded, his mind racing. He called Sonny, gave him the address, and within minutes the warehouse was packed with men. Drew was led away, his hands tied and his gaze empty. Britt stood next to Jason, her hand resting softly on his uninjured arm. "Are you okay?" she inquired, her voice barely above a whisper. Jason didn't respond. He could not. The weight of what had occurred, what he had nearly done, pressed down on him like a physical force. He saved Britt, but at what cost? Drew was broken, Jake was hurt, and Jason was left with the same question that had plagued him for years. Was he the hero, or just another man wreaking havoc in his wake? Jake awoke in the hospital, his small hand seeking for Jason's. "Is Britt all right?" he inquired, his voice low but steady. Jason nodded and swallowed the lump in his throat. "She is okay, buddy." Jake's eyes probed his father's face, and for a brief time, Jason felt the weight of his son's experiences. Why would Uncle Drew do that? Jake asked, his voice breaking. Jason couldn't think of an explanation that would make sense to a child. He drew Jake into his arms and held him close, as if he could protect him from the world's cruelty. Britt stood in the doorway watching them, her eyes welling with sorrow. She'd made it out alive, but the consequences of that night would last for everyone. As the days passed, Port Charles attempted to go forward. Drew was sent to a psychiatric clinic, his head shattered from years of suffering and bitterness. Jake recovered, his wounds faded, but the faith he had in his uncle was gone. Jason and Britt grew closer, their bond strengthened by the fire that night, but Jason couldn't ignore his guilt. He had saved them, but he hadn't been quick or strong enough to prevent it from happening in the first place. One night, as rain fell on Port Charles, Jason stood alone on the pier, staring at the warehouse where everything had gone wrong. The wind conveyed the sound of the waves, a somber song that echoed the pain in his chest. He thought about Jake, Britt, Drew, and the life he'd chosen, one of violence, loyalty, and sacrifice. He'd always convinced himself it was worthwhile, that he was protecting those he cared about. But now, standing in the rain, he wasn't so certain. Britt found him there, her umbrella keeping them both safe from the storm. She didn't say anything but stood by him, her presence a calm anchor in the whirlwind of his thoughts. For the first time in a long time, Jason allowed himself to hope, not for redemption or forgiveness, but for the opportunity to be more than the sum of his sins. According to General Hospital spoilers, practically every Port Charles citizen has a motive to want Drew Kane dead. Drew has performed one heinous act after another, and his next move is much worse than the last. It's only a matter of time before someone takes matters into their own hands, with Drew on the receiving end of a lethal weapon. Drew has developed enemies around every corner, and someone in Port Charles could kill him soon. Drew Kane is found murdered after creating enemies left and right. Drew was discovered dead in a pool of blood at his home. Someone appears to have grown tired of Drew's evil deeds and determined that he needed to leave. Perhaps Martin Gray comes at his house and discovers Drew dead. Anna Devane, Dante Falconeri, and Harrison Chase would have their hands full, as practically every Port Charles inhabitant had a reason for wanting Drew dead. Although the murder weapon is missing, it is evident that Drew was attacked in his house by a determined assailant. The PCPD launches its investigation, and everyone in Port Charles who was involved with Drew is a suspect. Many people are brought in for questioning. Willow Tate and Michael Corinthos are the most likely suspects. Both are brought up for interrogation, but neither has a credible alibi. Additional suspects are being probed and questioned, including Carly Spencer, Sonny Corinthos, Alexis Davis, Nina Reeves, Curtis Ashford, Dr. Portia Robinson, and others. After investigating and finding that Drew was stabbed with a dagger, Alexis is identified as the primary suspect, as Anna discovers that the dagger has returned to Alexis' possession. There was enough evidence to make an arrest, and Alexis was formally charged with the crime. Alexis would be arrested and brought into custody, leaving Port Charles stunned. Did Alexis actually kill Drew? Drew Kane makes his appearance in a stunning twist. Drew appears to be held captive somewhere. Could this actually be Drew? He appears to have been confined there for several years. In fact, the Drew we've been seeing in Port Charles for a while may not even be Drew. Did the actual Drew Kane die? Or is this the real Drew? Sooner or later, the real Drew would return to Port Charles, surprising everyone. The man we knew as Drew Kane was an imposter. The man who was recently murdered while posing as Drew was not Drew at all. While his identity remains unknown, we do know that the real Drew is still alive and striving to return to Port Charles. Who was Drew the imposter? Was it Shiloh all along? Or was it somebody else? Why was this person pretending as Drew, and what did they hope to gain from it? Also, who killed imposter Drew? What do you think? What are your thoughts? Do you believe the man posing as Drew will be murdered? Who killed him? Will the real Drew return once the imposter Drew is murdered? Keep watching General Hospital on ABC weekdays to see whether this plot twist occurs. And don't forget to check back right here. The narrative began in the city's shadowy corners, where rumors of a dark conspiracy first surfaced. Drew, the former Navy SEAL and Quartermain heir, had been at the heart of a storm since his return to Port Charles. His delicate relationship with the town's powerful figures, particularly his twin brother Jason Morgan and the manipulative Cyrus Renault, made him a target. The buzz on the street was that someone wanted Drew out of the picture forever. His latest commercial efforts, which threatened to upend the Quartermain Empire's power dynamic, stirred feathers. With his complex romantic entanglements, it's no surprise that Drew's name topped more than one hit list. The tension had been building for weeks, with cryptic messages, shady encounters, and near-miss accidents that had everyone on edge. When a cryptic note surfaced, indicating a murder plan with Drew as the target, the town braced for the worst. The night of the alleged murder was one Port Charles would not soon forget. A charity dinner at the Metro Court, hosted by the ever-glamorous Carly Spencer, had attracted the town's elite. Crystal chandeliers gleamed overhead, and the air was alive with laughter and clinking glasses, yet danger lurked beneath the surface. Drew, dressed nicely in a tailored suit, had been mixing with the elite, oblivious that everyone was monitoring his every move. A few observant guests had spotted a mysterious figure hidden in the darkness of the hotel's rooftop. Whispers of a weapon, a glimmer of metal in the moonlight, spread like wildfire. Then mayhem erupted. A scream pierced the night as a body fell from the rooftop and landed with a horrible thud in the courtyard beneath. The throng froze in terror when the dead shape was revealed to be someone else entirely. The man on the ground was not Drew. It was a decoy, a hired lookalike who bore an eerie likeness to Drew. The plot had failed, but one mystery remained. Who was behind it? In the days that followed, Port Charles was a hotbed of mistrust. The police, led by the determined Commissioner Jordan Ashford, conducted an extensive investigation. Every lead directed to a new suspect, each with an equally compelling motive. Was it Sonny Corinthos, whose underground interests contrasted with Drew's desire for legal business? Or possibly Nina Reeves, whose tangled feelings for Drew had turned dark following a recent betrayal? Even the Quartermains were under suspicion, with Tracy Quartermain's cutthroat desire to preserve the family legacy making her a prime contender. The investigation revealed a labyrinth of deception, ranging from faked paperwork to secret affiliations, with each thread drawing the town deeper into the mystery. Drew, scared but determined, refused to hide. "I've faced worse than this," he said, his steely eyes a reminder of his fortitude. But he couldn't ignore the shiver of knowing someone wanted him dead. As the investigation progressed, a surprising ally emerged. Drew's ex, Sam McCall, a woman with her own murky connections to Port Charles's underbelly. Sam's investigation talents, developed over years of navigating the town's perils, made her a strong opponent. She charged into the matter with a zeal that startled even those closest to her. Working with Jason, who shared a link with Drew that extended beyond their shared DNA, Sam discovered a trail of clues that led to an unexpected source. A concealed camera in the Metro Court service elevator captured blurry film of someone sliding a cryptic letter under Drew's door on the night of the gala. The message, later discovered, simply stated, "You're next." The handwriting was careful, almost artistic, implying someone with a flair for the dramatic. Sam's intuition warned her that this was not a random act. It was personal. The breakthrough came when Sam and Jason identified the decoy as a low-level operator with ties to a dark group operating on the outskirts of Port Charles. This gang, known simply as the Syndicate, had been rumored for years but never verified. Rumors circulated that they were a group of disaffected players from the town's past, driven by a desire for dominance and revenge. Their involvement increased the stakes, implying that the murder plot was part of a bigger plan to destabilize Port Charles. Drew, with his links to both the Quartermains and the city's business community, was an ideal target for sending a message. But why stage such a complex ruse just to let him live? The solution lied in the decoy's death, which was not an accident but a deliberate effort to reveal a traitor among the syndicate's ranks. As the pieces fell into place, the true genius began to emerge from the darkness. It wasn't Sonny, Nina, or Tracy, but Valentine Cassadine, who few had guessed. The suave and shrewd Cassadine heir had been playing a long game, utilizing his charm and riches to influence events from the background. Valentine's motivations were multifaceted, part revenge for previous slights, half a desire to seize control of the Quartermain enterprise. Drew's survival was no coincidence. Valentine had planned the decoy's death to raise suspicions against his rivals, undermining their positions while he maneuvered for power. The surprise was typical Cassadine. Exquisite, vicious, and devastatingly effective. But Valentine hadn't counted on Sam and Jason's unwavering pursuit of the truth, or Drew's refusal to be a pawn in anyone's game. The confrontation that ensued was the stuff of Port Charles mythology. Drew confronted Valentine in a tense encounter at the docks, with the waterfront covered in fog. The air crackled with tension as the two men spoke, both aware that one false move could be their last. Valentine, ever the cunning, offered Drew a deal. Leave Port Charles and the threats would stop. Drew, however, refused, motivated by a combination of rebellion and familial loyalty. "This town is my home," he responded calmly, despite Valentine's pistol. Sam and Jason broke up the standoff by rallying the police and critical allies such as Carly and Michael Corinthos. Valentine's strategy failed when his operatives abandoned him, sensing the tide turning. In a final act of desperation, he left into the darkness, leaving a trail of evidence that would keep the police busy for months. In the aftermath, Port Charles had to deal with the consequences. Drew's survival was a win, but it came at a cost. Trust, already fragile in a town founded on secrets, suffered another blow. The Quartermaines banded together, with Monica promising to protect her son at any costs. Despite their own complicated relationship with Drew, Sonny and Carly offered their support, realizing that the syndicate's threat was far from ended. The crisis revived Sam and Jason's partnership, and their shared history with Drew complicated their feelings. Drew saw the ordeal as a wake-up call. He emerged stronger, more determined to make his mark on Port Charles, not just as a Quartermaine, but as a man who could withstand any storm. As the village returned to an uncomfortable calm, the ghost of Valentine's escape hung large. Port Charles was on edge as rumors circulated about his return, new plots and new actors. The hospital, as usual, stood quiet witness to the play, its doors open to the next crisis, secret or twist. Drew's survival demonstrated the human spirit's endurance, but nothing was assured in Port Charles.